Welcome to today's podcast episode, everyone. I've got a very exciting guest for you guys. For those of you just joining the podcast, we're E.N.G Media, and today I have Paul with me, co-founder of Areti Health. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I'm excited to dive into really your guys' platform, what you guys are doing in healthcare, kind of, leveraging AI as well.
Yeah, you bet. Tyson, thanks for having me. First of all, this is super exciting. Let's it's like to talk about what we do and how we leverage AI. So
Yeah.
in elevator pitch, we do patient recruitment and engagement using AI. Today, it is a completely manual industry. If you've never participated in a clinical trial, there's usually ads that you see on Reddit, on Facebook, on Instagram. It's like, hey, if you have high blood pressure and you're a man over 45, would you be interested in participating in stuff? And you
Yeah.
click on it. And typically what happens, you fill out a form within Facebook or Instagram and you click submit. And then it just kind of goes into the void. And most likely you never hear back. And it happens because on the back end, there's this clinics that specialize in running the research, and ultimately it's a manual process. Someone has to pick up the lead, and they have 10,000 other things to do.
Yeah.
And this is a huge bottleneck. And so you may hear from them maybe a week later, maybe 2 weeks or so on, maybe a couple of days if you're lucky. And by the time, people tend to forget. The research says, studies say, you got to call people within the 5 minutes of them making a decision. You got to speed the lead. And if you don't, then they forget, right? That their decision making time is gone. And so you lose them and you spend all this money and effort to try to attract and bring out my interest, intrigue me in this, and then nothing.
Yeah.
And this is where we come in, right? The second someone clicks that lead using generative AI, we immediately synthesize a custom message to you. We text you and we call you. It's like, hey, Paul, you just filled out a form for a high blood pressure study. Let's see if you got 30 seconds to see if you are a fit. And we ask you a couple questions on the
Nice.
call, all Gen AI, and it sounds completely natural. We dial up the empathy up and down. We choose the right time to call. We follow up with you. And in the end, we quickly determine if you are a fit, and then we allow you to self-schedule, which is another huge advantage. We pull the calendar from the local clinic right there and then and say, we have, let's say, tomorrow or next Wednesday available. How about 9 o'clock? You say, great, you're scheduled. You get all the information in your inbox and you're good to go. And then we keep in touch with you. Paul, don't forget, your visit is coming up. Do you need an Uber or a Lyft? Do you need transport? Here's where to park. Here's where not to park. Don't forget not to eat anything or drink anything on the day off, like all the information that you need. And then you show up and you get into the research. And that's part of the story. The other part of the story is that there's the kind of organic traffic, people coming in through social media and advertising. But a lot of times, this research focuses on people with very specific condition, right? I mentioned high blood pressure, but imagine you're looking for someone with liver issues or diabetic issues and whatnot. And you got to figure out first, do they have the right combinations or not? And so attracting them through social media will typically yield nothing because a lot of people will click and in the end they're not a fit. That results what's called a screen failure. You show up, people spend time on you. You spend your own time, right, and energy. You went out of your way to go there because it's all volunteer based, right? You get paid, but it's all volunteer based. So you show up and you're not a fit, and everyone's disappointed. The clinic is disappointed because they spent time on you. You were disappointed because you wanted to participate in the research for whatever reason, and you're not a fit. So here's what we do. Clinics usually they work together with practices. So you go to your regular doctor, right? And so at some point, doctor was like, are you interested in research? And they will refer you out. But before reaching out to you, what we'll do is we'll go out to a national health exchange. It's like a national system-wide network where roughly we see about 70% of the US population there, and we can pull your medical chart. Of course, we have permission to do so from your treating doctor. We're not doing just willy-nilly. It's on behalf of, it's because your doctor allowed us to do so, and you at some point signed a consent with your treating provider saying, yes, I'm potentially interested in research. And so using AI, we match up, we look through your entire medical chart, which for some people could be extremely long. Someone with diabetic neuropathy, that medical chart could be 300 pages long. Imagine flipping through that on a daily basis for someone who works in a clinic. This is where AI absolutely excels. We load up the study protocol, which is the definition, what the study will do, how it will run, inclusion, exclusion criteria, who is a
Nice.
fit, who is not a fit. And then we match up your chart, which could include your latest lab results. You went to a lab, you did your blood work. All of a sudden, lab like says, candidate, this person is now a candidate.
Mm.
On the last lab result, we detected elevated, I don't know, hemoglobin levels or something. We look into that. We look into your scans. Like you did an X-ray, you did an MRI, you did a CT scan. Doctor wrote a note somewhere. Right? It's like, oh, he used to be a regular smoker, but not anymore. We can understand that as well. And so we see, okay, great. Now, Paul or Tyson is a fit. Let's reach out. And so we analyze the records, and then we do the engagement, all that through AI, completely bypassing the human bottleneck.
Nice.
Are we replacing humans? Not at all. No, there's a bit of a misconception like AI will do everything.
Right.
No, really a tool. So you were sitting there with let's say a screwdriver, and we came and give you a power drill. You got to be careful what do you do with a power drill. We're there to make sure that it's used safely, but you're going to be a lot more efficient. And so we make this process a lot more efficient. We accelerate that recruitment and engagement tremendously, at least 10x on the studies that we've seen.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I appreciate you giving us a background. It's interesting for me, somebody who's not, I guess, an expert in healthcare specifically, to see how patient engagement has been dealt with in the past, how you guys have found a way to, input AI into that overall system and the processes that take place, but it's AI that's enabling humans, I think is the huge thing. You guys aren't trying to remove humans from the process. You're just trying to give them that power drill, as you mentioned.
Not at all. Exactly. It's important to understand we're not making medical decisions, right? You see all this breaking news, like AI has completely replaced the doctors, and then somewhere later you figure out, no, not at all. In the same fashion, we're not replacing anyone in research at all. What we do is we take out this repetitive, laborious, monotonous piece that nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to sit and cold call the patients, which is
Right.
exactly how the industry has operated for years. And for years, it has been struggling. Like nobody has an answer to recruitment. It is the biggest pain point in the entire clinical trial. Because if you think about it, what's a clinical trial? Every time a pharmaceutical or biotech company wants to move a new drug onto the market, or a new, let's say, consider even Apple Watch. If an Apple Watch does something medically or clinical, then the FDA says it's a medical device now, much like your blood pressure monitor or something else. And so you got to go through the trials to make sure that it's safe for the public, right? That it actually does what it says, what you say it does, and that it's effective. And second, that it's safe to use for any drug or any medical device. There are various phases of it. There's phase for, let's say, healthy volunteers, that it doesn't impact healthy volunteers. There's phase for people with that specific condition, so on. And all of that hinges on volunteers. You cannot force anyone into it, right? You can only encourage them, explain why it's good to participate. So you got to run educational campaigns, explain why it's worth it. But there are three types of people that participate. There's people who want to make a little bit of extra money. Hey, you're a healthy volunteer. Here's a flu vaccine. Why not? Why not make some money and get protection from the flu season? Great. The second part is people that want to participate in research from altruistic purposes. They want to move the science forward. Great. And then the third category is really for people who can live a little longer thanks to this research, right? They're out of options. There's no medicine for them. They would love to participate in the research. It's just that there's not a lot of opportunities for them. And it's important to connect these people with the studies, educate them that these studies exist, and try to bring them into the studies. And so for years, you would see call centers or patient recruitment companies just dialing for dollars, if you will, trying to get these people to come in, catch you on the phone, explain what the study is about, right? And imagine some of the studies are targeting elder population, and so they're distrusting all the calls already. It's like a call is like, who is this? Why are you calling me? Right? And so and eventually people burn out. People have internal biases. There's a huge push from the FDA on diversity in recruitment. And it's hard. After all, humans dealing with humans is just hard. Who wants to do this cold calling? We are replacing that element, and we're infinitely empathetic. You can talk to us about anything study related. We're not on the clock. Oh, it's like, I only have just like your doctor. I only have 5 minutes with you, and then I got to move on. Right? We can spend as much time as we need to make sure you understand everything study related and make sure you're a fit. that you understand what you just signed, and then try to actually to come in, right? So you don't
Oh,
forget.
wow.
It's a huge empowering element. And it's only thanks to the recent advances in LLM, large language models, that
Yeah.
we're able to do this, synthesize this natural voice and not talk to you like a scripted
Yeah.
agent. Like this is what annoys people the most, right? They try to
Yeah.
ask something and the agent just is stuck and was like, oh, press 0 if you want to talk to him. I'll get me to you.
Yeah.
This is the thing of the past. Like today's LLMs, you
Uh-huh.
can talk to us absolutely naturally about anything. Because
Yeah.
if you take LLM, a large language model,
Uh,
it's essentially as if you're talking to a human, an
yeah.
adult that can more or less reason. And
Mhm.
then we give that adult information about the study. Plus, it has this general medical knowledge already, this
Yeah.
body of knowledge created. And so now we can talk to you reasonably about anything that is study related and empathetically. And so we
Mhm.
had cases where people would share the most intimate details of their life. I was absolutely blown away.
Oh, wow.
When we just started, we were testing out how this would work. And so
Sure.
we would call people with depression, and we would call them sometimes fairly late at night or text them late at night because they have insomnia and they cannot sleep and they're
Oh, wow.
browsing their Facebook and they're looking for something to do. Oh, here's a study. If you're
Yeah.
interested, we'll talk to you. And so we engage them. People will share deep secrets and intimate
Oh, wow.
details of their life that I don't think they would even share with a human. Sometimes
Right.
they're like, I don't want to sound I don't want to sound stupid, right? This is a
Mhm.
silly question. I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm not going to ask it. But if they don't ask the question, then they end up not coming. Why didn't you
Right.
come? Oh, I thought, I hate needles and I didn't want to ask about this because, I didn't want to embarrass myself. And so I decided not to participate in the study. But with us, they're free to ask about anything like other
Mhm.
other blood draws, right? Are you going to use needles? Is
Yeah.
there elevator in the building because I have limited mobility? Can I get a free bus ticket because my car is not running? All sorts of questions that we have very empathetic conversations going on.
Oh, wow. Very, very, very interesting. It's interesting to see people's relationship as they talk to AI. And what really sticks out to me is just your experience and your domain expertise. I think anybody in the healthcare space can see the value that you guys are providing to the market. And I appreciate you going over some very specific use cases of how you guys are leveraging these LLMs to better match up patients with the care that they need and to increase, the patient engagement from the healthcare standpoint as well. But I know you've got well over 20 years of experience of sales experience. So as I think through it in my head, if there are any, healthcare companies that want to boost and increase their patient engagement, or I guess, how do you feel that your previous sales experience leading up to this point has not only led to the success of your company, Areti Health, but also helped you guys optimize that process of boosting patient engagement for your clients?
Yeah, there's a couple of approaches here. One is if this is something new, if this is a green market, something that nobody has ever done, you got to find a champion in the industry, someone that will believe you and at least let you run an experiment. And this is how we started, right? We found this one customer that said, "Okay, I don't have a lot of time, but I'll let you put this chatbot on my website and see how it works."
Oh, nice.
And it worked beautifully. And so from there, we got a couple more introductions. We got a couple more real customers, and this is where they started putting their feature requests in. They wanted to know more, learn a little more. Then we went out to a conference.
Mm.
In this particular world, in clinical trials, it's an incredibly tight knit industry. I would even call this incestuous. These
Wow.
people constantly jump from one position to another, right? They rotate, but they kind of keep their skills. They do the same thing at company A, and then they go to company B, company C, and so
Huh.
you end up talking to them. It's like, oh yeah, I worked there and I worked here, and so the word starts to quickly spread around. And so when we
Oh,
went to a conference, this is when we started to offer our product in earnest as a product, not as a prototype. Like, hey, this is industry ready. It was nice to reference through these three existing customers that we have because
nice.
everybody knew, like, oh, I heard about them. Yeah, let me talk to them. So that gives you a vote of confidence. Like,
Yeah.
okay, if somebody's using, and so through that, I ended up, and this is more or less a sales skill. Pitches, right? You got to prepare for a conference, get the list of attendees, see who's
Uh-huh.
coming. I was able to get the general manager for a very large company involved in this research. And she was like, I'm interested. We've reserved a room. Come and show what you have. So rather
Oh,
than you're running around on the exhibition floor, it's loud, it's noisy, everyone is running elsewhere, it's kind of hard to get their attention. She's like, I'm interested enough. Come in and show us. And we've
Oh,
reserved 20 minutes for you because we're busy. We came in, just basically put down the laptop and said, go ahead and play with it. Just ask it and see how you like it. And you just started typing away. This was a bit of a risk at that time. We not necessarily know what the model is going to say, right? It's still a bit of a prototype.
yeah.
It was a calculated risk, and
Yeah.
so they play with it and ask questions and responded so well. They spent 40 minutes with us. And at the end, they said, you know what? We've played with academia prototypes. This is the first time we see a product that is truly industry ready.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was a groundbreaking moment, right?
Yeah.
Because from there, we started the engagement with them and the word just started spreading.
Oh.
And this is how we're able to leverage that. And again, because it's so tight knit, it's important. It's important to not be as transactional
Mm.
in some of the sales operations. You're very transactional. Here's what the product costs. We know that it already works, or either you buy it or you don't, and I got to move on. Here, they want to understand you as a person to make sure they want to do business with you as a
100%.
person. Everyone in clinical trials is ultimately invested in patient healthcare, right?
Mm.
They very much care about the patients, and so
Yeah.
they want to do business with someone who is in this industry for a reason, not just to come in, pitch them something, sell them something, and bail out. So
100%.
that's another aspect that helps. If you can connect on a personal level, try to get in. The business is done, not on the trade floor necessarily. The business is done after hours.
Yeah.
I cannot overstate how important that is in particular industries and how important it was for us. Yes.
100%. What an awesome story. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. I mean, and I know since then you guys have scaled pretty tremendously in a lot of the companies that you've been able to help, but it really just sounds like it boils down to relationships, building trust and credibility, being authentic, making sure that you're ready and you're prepared to communicate out the value proposition that your software can bring to the table for some of these healthcare companies. And I know as well, from our previous conversations that you've been able to leverage, like, I guess, strategic channel partnerships with folks in healthcare technology. And one initiative that we wanted to have on our podcast is bringing on more people within healthcare technology. And so, what are the type of companies that you've looked to create partnerships with, or are open to creating partnerships with potentially even into the future? Like, are they specializing in anything specific in healthcare from what you've seen?
Yeah, great question, Tyson. So there's two approaches that you can do. One, you can build a walled garden where like these are my patients, these are the patients that I've processed before, and I can try to resell them later, or I can just elbow out everyone in the market and carve out a niche for myself. Now, we are newcomers. This space has existed for a very long time. There are relationships built between the pharmaceutical companies, the CROs, these intermediaries that actually design the whole trial, how it will go, and manage the administrative work and manage the clinics that actually do the research. And so if you want to break into the chain, it could take a very long time where you're pushing out everyone out of the way and view them as competitors. The approach that we took, we want to plug in into your existing operations. Oh, you're a clinic. We're going to improve your efficiency
Mm.
tremendously. You don't even have to change how you do business on a day to day.
Oh,
Like
wow.
all the patients are just going to schedule and magic show up. Great. You are a CRO, a contract research organization. Here's the value that we bring. And again, we're going to plug in so that it doesn't disrupt anything that you've been doing before. Now,
Nice.
part of that chain is patient recruitment agencies that have been doing this business for a while, right? They've just been doing it manually. So
Mhm.
rather than view them as competitors, we started engaging them and said, we can tremendously boost your value and we can improve your operations. Before, you would bring a patient and then the patient may not be a fit, and there's this notion of performance fees. Everyone gets paid if you brought a truly valuable patient.
Mm.
If you brought 100 people and none of them are a fit, then what value do you bring? So you don't
Right.
get paid much. And you put all these resources, you put people on your side to try to bring these 100 patients in, and nothing worked out. That's a risk. That's why it's called performance fees. Now
Yeah.
we came to patient recruitment companies and says, how about we de-risk that operation for you? Instead of
Mm.
running a call center and paying that call center, how about we do the outreach? We do the chart review so that you bring quality patients in.
Oh, wow.
In return, we get your established channels in your established master agreements with pharmacies around the world,
I see.
pharma companies. To imagine you're Pfizer or Eli Lilly, to get your attention, to find the proper person, to negotiate IT vendor assessment to make sure that you're secure and you're HIPAA compliant and everything. It can take years, right? Because they move slow. If you can find someone that will take you under their wing because you bring a lot of value to them, and they already have this channels established, fantastic. And so this is how we started working with the largest patient recruitment, patient experience companies in the United States and
I
some
see.
in the world for that. That's the OEM channel. It's a fantastic proposition.
Yeah, I appreciate you breaking that down, for not only me, but our audience as well. I think that that's super helpful for other folks in healthcare technology to understand. Something else that I kind of wanted to transition into as well is, Already Health's 2026 functionality and kind of what that means for pharma, biotech, and a lot of the healthcare companies that you guys are working for. Do you have any new developments, I guess, in technology kind of on the roadmap for like the end of this year and then into next year as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So that health exchange lookup is groundbreaking, and
Right.
everyone is interested because it tremendously de-risks everything that you're
Right.
doing. We just wrapped up an early Alzheimer trial study. We wrapped up our recruitment, like the study is still running. We wrapped up the recruitment phase
Oh,
and
nice.
tallied up all the numbers. And just to put things in perspective, early Alzheimer, it means you're engaging elder population, 60 to 80 years old. The pharmaceutical company that is running the trial expects the screen failure rate to be about 98%.
Oh, wow.
They expect that if they bring 100 people in
Mhm.
and then assess how are they a fit or not, the two will be left, right? 98
Wow.
will be weeded out. When all said and done, it turned out that we brought in 60% of the patients.
Mhm.
So we actually exceeded the capacity of what the clinic could do on their
Nice.
own. We brought 60% of the patients that ended up being in the trial. We boosted their recruitment by 150% from the expected numbers, and we lowered that screen failure rate from 98 to just over 50%.
Nice.
Um, and that is tremendous. And now everyone is taking note. Everyone sees the value. We just deployed what's so-called nurturing. Nurturing is sometimes, let's say, you're sitting and you get a random call like, Tyson, would you like to participate in a high blood pressure study? I'm like, I never thought about this. Why would I do this? No. And you hang up, right? So
Mhm.
we kind of lost you. What if we started kind of dripping this news? Hey, Tyson, we're reaching out from your Dr. Jones. Here's some news about blood pressure, like why high blood pressure is dangerous, or there's a new drug on the market that is potentially going through trials. It might be worth. And so we keep on dripping on you that eventually, when the study actually starts recruiting, like, hey, Tyson, would you like to participate in a high blood pressure study? Like, oh, you know what? I am now educated enough. Yes, let's take
100%.
a screen and see. And so that's called nurturing. It is extremely important. For example, let's say there is a study on flu on avian flu, right?
Okay.
And it only wants to find people that are at risk. These are people that, let's say, work at poultry farms, veterinary clinics, and so on. And so you got to actually somehow engage just those people. You're not going to get them on social media, right?
Right.
Poultry farm workers, let's say in California, are not necessarily going to be on social media. So you got to figure out a way. How do you find these people? How do you attract them? You probably actually got to go out. One, you got to speak Spanish
Yeah.
or maybe Vietnamese, right? Because that's the people that typically work at those farms. And two, you got to create resonating message to them. Why would they want to participate? Right? What it
Right.
means for them. And maybe it's because in Central California they live like six person to a room sometimes, right? It's terrible
Mhm.
conditions. And if one of them gets sick, the rest will get sick, and so the whole household misses out on income, right?
Okay.
That could be a resonating message. Maybe something else, but you got to do it, and you got to do it well in advance of the study to educate
Right.
them. Maybe put posters and leave behind notes and whatnot. It is all part of nurturing. And
Yeah.
so now again, we're applying AI to generate these messages,
Mhm.
put them in the right language, keep engaged before, and
Okay.
then most importantly, keep engaged after. Another part of this whole equation is not just recruiting, it's keeping people in the study. Studies sometimes are very long, 60 weeks, 80 weeks long.
Oh, wow.
People get tired. I got to go to the clinic again and, do a checkup there, or they're taking some measurements or whatever. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm done. Digital assistant. Like, we nurture them. Like, are you ready, John? Are you ready to come in tomorrow at 3? I'm just like, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't want to do this anymore. Or tell me what's next for me. I totally forgot. And nobody's on call. There's nobody to call. Can you talk to me? Yes, we can. Right? We're your
Nice.
personal digital assistant. Again, infinitely empathetic, and there for you to tell you what's going to happen next, why it's important for you to continue participating.
Yeah.
That's another part of nurturing, keeping patients in the clinical trial.
100%. That's very, very awesome. I think that I love how you guys are incorporating the nurturing sequences into some of your workflows and I can totally see how that helps boost the engagement. I just think that it brings awareness to a lot of the trials that you had mentioned. And, so at that point, whenever it is the correct time and you guys are doing the outreach over the phone to patients, they'll actually have a better understanding, I guess, of what's going on and a little bit more context than they would if that was just, the time you guys reach out was the first time that you ever reached out to them. So I love that. And I'm curious to follow along with that. I know that there's a little bit more information about those case studies on your guys' website that I'll be sure to
Yes.
include in this video as well. And, a question that I had for you, Paul, as well is I always like to wrap up the podcast with this question just because I get some of the most interesting responses. And that's, let's just say hypothetically speaking that, you could wave a magic wand and maybe solve one thing in the business right now that's, it's almost like a big domino. If solved, kind of everything else would fall back into place. I'd be curious, with your industry and with what your guys' goals are. Do you know maybe what that one thing would be, or even if there really even is one thing?
You know, just looking at how AI is disrupting all the industries, tech, and I'd love for organizations and the leaders of the organizations to understand that this is a tool that's not necessarily replacing people. It's just making them more effective because there's been a huge drive to eliminate the jobs, right?
Yeah,
Eliminate the jobs because AI is going to do it. In the end customer and the patients or just consumers suffer the consequences because AI isn't at this point, and it would be silly to pretend that it is. It is a tool, right?
yeah,
Someone has to monitor, someone has to set it up, someone has to work with it, and so
yeah,
you still need people, unless you don't want to take juniors anymore. But unless you don't take juniors, where are you going to get your mid-level people and senior people later down the road? Part of backlash is also what turns off sometimes our customers. Like, oh yeah, I've heard about AI. Like everyone over promises and under delivers. It hurts
yeah,
everyone in the industry. I'd love for to everyone have a solid understanding what
yeah.
it can and what it cannot do. I think it will help tremendously.
100%. Yeah, I love that. And your guys' approach at Areti Health is more of human in the loop AI, to where, as you
Precisely.
mentioned, there's a human there that's monitoring, that's managing the AI that's actually being deployed. And then, at the end of the day, there's a human dealing with patients, dealing with customers, and that's what drives
Absolutely.
the patient engagement. I love that. Hopefully this podcast helps drive that point home. But, I think you guys do a great job, as I mentioned, of having several case studies showing the specific use cases of how you guys are deploying the AI. And if anybody looks a little bit further than surface level, they'll see that it's more of a human in the loop approach from podcasts and from a lot of the content that you guys are creating on social media as well. And that's what I wanted to get to for any folks in the audience that want to learn a little bit more about Areti Health, or maybe they want to connect with you, Paul, after some of the insights you've shared on the podcast. What would be the best platform for the audience to go and connect outside of your guys' website?
I think LinkedIn is ideal. Like, message me. I'm always on LinkedIn, right?
Nice.
Funny, I should be less on my phone, but always terminally online. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best.
Perfect. And like I said, I'll be sure to include links in the descriptions to your guys' socials. I highly recommend that my audience go check out Areti Health. I think you guys are working on some really awesome things. I know that I'll be following along. And as I mentioned, if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment on this video if you see it on YouTube. Feel free to comment on the post if you see it on LinkedIn as well. But other than that, Paul, I just wanted to tell you again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for really just for sharing your insights today.
Thank you, Tyson. This was amazing,
Yeah,
wonderful.
absolutely. And there you have it, guys. As I mentioned, let us know if you have any questions. But, other than that, we will catch you in the next video.